You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves 5-game win streak snapped tonight thanks to the Wizards. Yeah, the Washington Wizards. Final score at the Target Center, 105-103. What's going on? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me, as always. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. Jack, lots to get into. I kind of want to pick your brain about those final 5-6 minutes. What the Wolves really needed a spark that they couldn't just find. Plus, the Wolves rolling deep on the bench with no Ant, no Julius, no DDV. They lost Naz Reid for most of this one as well. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app. Create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves coming into this one, winners of 5 in a row, red hot, looking great, looking for number 6 versus the lowly Wizards, but they'd have to do it with no Ant illness, no Julius with that groin injury, no DDV, obviously, and then to make matters worse, they lost Naz Reid to a finger sprain about halfway through this one as well. So Wolves go into the fourth quarter down 6. They go on an 8-0 run with about 7 minutes left. Washington comes right back, though. 9-0 run for themselves. And then they just got down like 2 possessions, right? 4, 5, 6 points. They can never really find that spark when they needed it. Streak is snapped. Final score 105-103. Wolves dropped to 27-21 on the year. 27-22 on the year. But I always like to start just real quick, 30, 60 seconds, big picture. On one hand, for me, it's like no Ant, no DDV, no Julius, no Naz halfway through. So I don't know how mad you can be when you're missing so many core pieces, Jack. But on the other hand, it's the Wizards, man. The Wizards. They have won a road game in 21 tries. So how do you feel? How should Wolves fans feel, I guess, after this one?
I guess it depends. For someone like me who really is not getting overly worked up about any one single game,
yeah,
especially one where 4 guys are out, like I'm just not really going to get all that upset by it. But certainly, I think in the grand scheme of the season, like it's one that you're going to look back at and be frustrated by, just because obviously the Wizards had lost, 21 home games or 21 road games in a row, had lost 16 games in a row. No question about it. But yeah, for me, I just think that, this is a team that clearly did, played a lot of lineups that hadn't played much together. And I think especially with that quote unquote starting group that you saw, it was just overly reliant on Mike and Rudy in the pick and roll too much so. And I thought that the ball movement got really stagnant and didn't get everyone involved enough when those 2 guys are on the floor, especially at the end of the game. We'll get to Joe Ingles. It was obviously great to have him playing, but I think my biggest frustration of this game was that Chris Finch didn't go back to Rob Dillingham in the fourth quarter. I understand that Rob Dillingham, went 0-4 in the third quarter and didn't particularly have his best stint there. But I mean, just looking at the offense as a whole tonight, in the second half, the Timberwolves had an offensive rating of about 92, which is absolutely abhorrent. And that's compared to 114 in the first half, which is about league average. And league average with all the guys they have out is great. And just particularly looking at how the offense performed with Rob Dillingham on the floor versus without Rob Dillingham on the floor. Rob Dillingham played 17 minutes and 46 seconds in this game. They had an offensive rating of 121.6 in those minutes. And that is on par with the best offense in the NBA this season. With Rob Dillingham off the floor, they had an offensive rating of 93.5, which is, 10 points below the worst offense in the league. And that was in the 30 minutes that he did not play. And again, I just thought that there was way too many, or he just provided so much juice for the offense. Even when he wasn't playing his best, I still thought that the ball was moving better. It was touching, the hands of more players on the floor and kept more guys involved. And I thought that, just not going back to that and trusting Mike Conley a little too much to have him play 14 straight minutes to close the game when, he really has not played more than 7 or 8 minutes at a time. for extended, for most of this season. There have been rare instances, but again, I just thought it would have been a case where, you at least go back to Rob Dillingham for a couple of minutes. When you're running the offense through Joe Ingles, you can at least,
Right.
Steal a couple of minutes with Rob out there to at least have another look to throw at the defense, because they knew every single time what the Timberwolves are trying to do late in the game. So that was a little frustrating for me.
Do you think if you try to put yourself in Finch's shoes, try to find the method to the madness? Aaron says Dillingham was awful in the third quarter. One of the main reasons the Wizards pushed the lead back up to 11. Maybe he got cold there. Do you think that scared off Finch a little bit towards the end, and he wanted his veterans in there, so to speak, in such a tightly contested game that came down to the wire, or just kind of a head scratcher nonetheless? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's certainly the reason why, but I don't necessarily agree with the decision. And I think the other part of it was just that lineup that started the fourth quarter, Mike, Nikhil, Jaden, Joe, and Rudy played so well at the start of the quarter. He probably just wanted to roll with it. But, he bought Joe Ingles a couple minutes. I thought that in the couple minutes that Joe Ingles sat, the offense got really, really stagnant, and they played – no, it was 94-93 Wizards when Joe Ingles came out of the game. And when Joe Ingles came back in the game a little more than a minute later, it was a 5-point game, and they just couldn't really, get it much closer, than that. I mean, they got it down to 1 with 2 minutes left, but it just, it just didn't. It felt like Washington was still just in control of that game, and then Kuzma comes back with a couple buckets. So I don't know. I just would have liked to see the Timberwolves also, go away from the Mike Rudy pick and roll. I thought that they kind of alienated Jaden McDaniels a little bit too much at the end of the game. He didn't really touch the ball at all for, 4 or 5 minutes. And then when he did, it was just in situations where, it was just isolation one-on-one and less kind of in the flow, which is just kind of a bummer. And that's the downside of that pick and roll game, is that, sometimes if you're not moving the ball well enough and you're only playing with 1 or 2 guys, maybe a third banana in there like Ingles was, the other 2 guys on the floor just aren't really that involved. So, definitely a bummer that that was what happened, offensively for the Wolves. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like, Kyle Kuzma made a couple of huge shots at the end of the game, and Jonas Valanciunas had a really opportunistic offensive rebound there. And, Rudy was really strong on the glass for most of this game, had 16 rebounds in this game, but, gave up a crucial one at the worst part of the game. And, it's happened a couple times this season. And I think, as a whole, it was just unfortunate that the Wolves really subscribed to the whole gang rebounding theory, and then just couldn't get there at the end.
Yeah, and obviously this one stings. This next question I'm going to ask you, just being a prisoner of the moment, everything you just described and laid out as far as not getting Dilly those minutes, just a handful of more minutes there towards the end. But, I missed the last 2 games on the postcast, as you know. I feel like big picture, though, I mean, the step forward this kid's taken just the last handful of games. I mean, how encouraged, how excited, I guess, are you? Should Wolves fans be about his future? And also, too, like, what part of his game is starting to look really special, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the way that he's played in the pick and roll game and the way he's been able to score from 2 has been really important. That was something that, Ben and I talked about the other night, just saying that, coming into the season and in the preseason and a little bit early in the regular season, like, he was getting his shot blocked when he did play and was really struggling to score inside the arc. But I think he's really gotten comfortable in that department and has really been an important contributor in that pick and roll game, just as a guy that's got the off the dribble juice, that can create his own shot, that can set up screens really, really well, and kind of create a runway for himself to get into the mid range and make some tough, sometimes tough shots, but sometimes wide open shots. And so I think that's been the most promising thing. The 3-point shot is going to wax and wane a little bit, as it does with almost every rookie in the NBA. So I think the more that, you can create your own shot, whether it's at the rim in that little short mid-range floater area, especially when you have a screen setter like Rudy Gobert and a couple of pick and pop threats in Naz Reid and Luka Garza that are going to put the defense in a bind. I think anything you can do to, just draw the defense in or, create space for yourself with the ball in your hands is really important. I thought he did that tremendously well in the first half. I mean, you saw exactly why. And I think too, the other part of him having success from two early on in the, at least early on in some of these games and for a successive stretch of games here, is that then it's just forcing the defense to come up and play on him. And then I think he's able to really flash some of that playmaking like he did in this game tonight. So I think the more that he can, I think, just make the right read and know exactly, all right, with this look, I want to be more of a scorer. With another look, I want to be more of a playmaker, and then kind of just oscillate between the two based on what look the defense is giving him and do that a little bit more confidently. I think he's going to be really, really dynamic and really special with the ball in his hands. And I just think the one area that he's got to continue to improve, but is arguably the toughest jump to make going from college to the pros, is just finding out how to create some of those passing angles for yourself, right? The length and athleticism is just so different at the NBA level compared to college. And, I think sometimes he tries to throw a little bit too ambitious passes where the window just isn't there because he's not used to that live NBA speed quite as much. But I think, again, just the promise that he's shown with the ball in his hands has been really fun and special. And I think gives you a lot more confidence in what he's been or what he's going to be able to do down the stretch of the season. And he's just not afraid of any moment, I don't think, with how much confidence he's got. So that should bode well, going into, after the All-Star break when it really starts to get going.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, that's something that no matter the sport you watch, it just feels like guys either they got it or they don't, right? But you're right. As far as just passing lanes closing up, I think about rookie quarterbacks. I'm a big NFL guy. Rookie quarterbacks, those windows get tight going from college to the pros, not just between the 20s, but down in the red zone as well. And I think with just some more playing time, for sure, he's going to be able to polish up some of that aspect of his game. But the raw ability, man, is as long as he continues to develop. And again, he needs minutes to do that, Finch. But nonetheless, I think certainly good things ahead for him nonetheless. Plenty more deep dive. We should talk about Jaden McDaniels. First 2010 game of his career. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel's giving you a chance at a huge return, $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 wager. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Super Bowl 59 is here as well. FanDuel's got endless possibilities on that game. Plus, while you're there, go check out some NBA future action as well. Naz Reid, 6 Man of the Year odds, still sitting at 6-1. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, glass half full, a topic, got to be Jaden, J-Mac. First 2010 game of his career, fourth double-double this year. He got a bigger piece of the pie tonight, obviously. No Ant, no Julius. And he went to work, and he ate, it felt like, all he could handle. Maybe you could argue he probably could have put a little bit more of that pie on his plate at the end. But just what's most encouraging, I guess, about tonight when it comes to, J-Mac stepping up his game, maybe slowly but surely this year, but certainly, making a mark, I feel like, as of late, and being more of a playmaker as well when called upon.
Yeah, no question. I thought it was really fun to see the kind of two-man game that he and Rudy had early in this game. I thought that synergy and connection was super evident as something that we haven't seen a ton of. Yeah. But, especially considering when Jaden gets the ball off cuts, the only time he's really ever going to throw it to Rudy is just on a little dump off. But I thought with Jaden having the ball in his hands a lot more early in this game, it was really cool to see, him kind of get in that give and go game with Gobert and initiate some of the DHO stuff that's been really fruitful for guys like Ant and Rob Dillingham and, and at different times, guys like Naz Reid too. So I think, again, just being able to activate some more of what Jaden can do on the ball has been fun to watch and was certainly fun to watch tonight. I mean, again, 23 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and a block, and only 1 turnover for Jaden is nothing to sneeze at. And again, what he was able to do right off the bat in the first quarter, I thought was really cool, just because, again, there haven't been a whole lot of opportunities for Jaden to really be one of the more featured pieces of the offense, considering, you've got Ant, you've got Randall, and then you've got the Mike and Rudy pick and roll that obviously is still going to be somewhat of a focal point of the offense. So for him to come out and score 9 points right away in the first quarter, I just thought set a good tone, got it done at all three levels of the floor, worked his way to the free throw line as well, which was cool to see. And again, I just think that the other part of this too is that despite the fact that Jaden was, asked to do more offensively in this game, that didn't prevent him from still being a huge factor on the glass. He had 12 rebounds to go along with his 23 points. It was his first 2010 game of his career, I believe. So he just deserves a lot of flowers, I think, for the way that he's been able to scale his game up and scale his game down, depending on who's available and what guys are in the rotation or not as well, because he's played at different points in the rotation where he's played more minutes with Rudy at the start of the second quarter. He's also played the entire first quarter and played more with that Naz and Randall front court. So I think this year he's added more versatility in terms of what he's done with the basketball offensively, and that's allowed him to be more impactful with kind of the bifurcate rotation that the Wolves have between the Rudy lineups and then the Naz and Randall lineups. So been really fun to see just him do more, because I think it's certainly there, and his defense has remained excellent. So I think the fact that it hasn't come at the cost of his defense dipping or his rebound dipping has been great. And the other part of it too is that when you get into the playoffs and teams' defensive game plans are centered so much around taking away what your stars do best, those are moments in which your fourth and fifth and sixth options really have the opportunity to step up, make plays, and shine. And that's certainly what Jaden did in the playoffs last year for the overwhelming majority of the playoffs. I mean, he was the second leading scorer on the Timberwolves team that went into Denver and won in game 7 on the road of a playoff series. So again, the talent is there. It's just about how much of it you can extract and how consistently you can extract it. And I think Jaden deserves a lot of credit for, not overdoing it tonight. I think there were certainly moments where he could have tried to do too much of the basketball or play outside of his game, and I don't think he did that. So that was certainly a highlight in this game, and something that, if Ant misses another game, and obviously Randall feels like it's going to be out for a couple of games here, and who knows with Naz, but if two of those three guys miss more time, he's going to need to keep doing that. But it's good to see that the production is matching the talent.
And on that note too, again, obviously no Ant tonight, no Julius, still no DDV, losing Nas halfway through. A lot of bench guys in play tonight that we haven't seen. Some new face: Jalen Clark, Joe Ingles, Luka Garza, all getting some healthy run and solid minutes. Robbie D, we already talked about, 7 and 7 tonight. But also on the other hand, no Minot, no Leonard Miller, none of my guy, Terrence Shannon Jr. I'm still waiting to see. But talk to me about, I guess, the depth, the bench guys, the young guys they're trying to develop, what you liked, what you disliked about the Wolves' depth, I guess, going into the second half of the season. Because the deeper we go into the year here, Jack, like the more wear and tear, guys get dinged up, and this for every team. Every team is going to have to lean on their bench and their depth more and more. So what kind of shape, I guess, are we in for the long haul from what you've seen of this depth?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to tell, I guess, in a sense, because Ant, I think, had played like 108 consecutive regular season games to this point. It was the first game he's missed this season. I also think it was the first game Randall's missed all year. So first of all, I mean, you got to give the Stars credit for, being available in all these games, because that's the best availability, right? And so, or the best ability is availability. And so that's obviously important. But again, I think in this game, I saw a comment earlier that was complaining about not going deep enough into the bench. Like, there's, 4 key guys that are out, and there's only so many minutes to go around. And like, you're going to want to try to play your best players a little bit more.
Still got to try to win the game here.
Yeah. It's not like Steve Kerr where every team's playing a 12-man rotation here. And I think the grass is always going to be greener when you're not in the arena, but Yeah, I understand why TJ Shannon didn't play. Just for context, he missed like a month with a midfoot sprain. Hasn't had a whole lot of time to practice. Like he was just recently cleared for 5-on-5 yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just so pull up that comment, most recent comment from Jeff. I think that is a good summation of the problem right now. And so, sure, I think the other part with Josh Minott is, I mean, Josh Minott has been awful in his most recent minutes. He's been off defensively. I also think that there's an arrogance to Josh Minott a little bit that has been a little troubling. Like obviously you saw the tweet of, he's sent some things on social media when, he's gotten inconsistent minutes. And then when he's gone in the last few times has made some bad mistakes on the defensive end of the floor. And that's exactly, why Finch hasn't been playing him. And then he gets minutes and then makes the same mistake. So that's part of the reason why. I think the only fair one is, you could have seen Leonard Miller tonight, but going back to Joe Ingles, like I think people think that Joe Ingles is just like a meme at this point, or he's not a productive player. Like Joe Ingles averaged like 10 points a game on 40% 3-point shooting for 40% Orlando last
from
year.
Beyond the Arc last year.
Yeah, and was a legitimately productive guy and is a guy whose game should age pretty well because it was never predicated on athleticism, right? And he comes in the game and does exactly what Finchie's asking of him. 10 points, 4-6 shooting, 3 assists. He did have 4 turnovers, but that was more because he was trying to keep and get Rudy involved in the game, which I understand. But again, like that's another piece of it that's really important too, is that I thought he pressed the Joe Ingles button at the right time, and thought I had no problem with going back to Joe Ingles the way that he did in the fourth quarter, which was nice. And I would rather see Joe Ingles than Leonard Miller. And if I'm in the minority there, like that's totally fine with me, because I know that there's still some concerns about Leonard Miller's defensive play, especially his off-ball awareness and fouling too much at times. So that's if that's been a problem with Minott, and Minott has not been getting the run that a lot of people think that he should be getting, it's probably not going to come for Leonard Miller, at least right now. I think
that makes sense.
And again, maybe if you're able to practice here now that you're at home, start of a 5-game homestand, maybe you can get a look in practice here or walk through or whatever with some different lineup combinations where maybe you can pair Leonard Miller out there with some shooting. Maybe you play him and Ingles together and Gobert, and then maybe you can get like a Mike Conley and maybe Dillingham together, where you can get some ball handling and shooting, and then just have a lot of length on the wings with with Ingles and Miller. That's certainly something that you could do. But again, I just think what you're going to get a little bit more with Joe Ingles. And so I think trying to get him a little bit more comfortable playing now that you're going to need him to play a little bit more with Randall being out, totally fine with that. And I think that, there's a comment there that you can't play Dillingham and Conley together for long stretches. I agree with that for sure. But there's certainly lineups in which it can be just fine. And, I especially against bench lineups, there's just not a lot of guys out there that are going to consistently overpower 2 small guards like that when you've also got 2 really long wings and Rudy Gobert on the floor. Like I think you're able to survive it at least. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense as well. Great breakdown right there for sure. A lot of interesting topics that, again, we'll see if we're having, some similar topics, I guess, a conversation once we find out if Julius continues to miss some time. Sounds like he will. What the status of Naz Reid is. Does Ant miss one more game? What all that looks up. But we got a couple minutes left. Let's talk about the Sacramento game. That's coming up Monday night, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule gets packed with work projects and more, so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Before I ask you about Sacramento here, what's any latest updates with the studs? DDV, I haven't talked to you in a week or so. Julius, it sounds like maybe if you had to guess, probably going to miss at least a handful of games. Ant 50-50 comes back Monday. Naz with the finger sprain. What does that typically mean, I guess, in the NBA in your best estimation?
Yeah, I think certainly with Dante, it was they got good news that it was not that grade 3 toe sprain. A second opinion ruled it a grade 2 toe sprain, essentially.
So no surgery.
No
correct?
surgery needed. Becomes more of a weeks, not months injury. So I would certainly expect that Dante DiVincenzo will be out until after the All-Star break. Maybe they'll be able to kind of ramp him up a little bit. He might be a guy that stays back in Minnesota during the All-Star break to continue to get treatment and kind of ramp up conditioning wise, potentially. But he's out of that boot, which is good. People have seen him shooting after practice, which is obviously a good sign. So, he might be a guy that returns closer to the end of February or early on in March, but still, the hope is that, he can maybe be back for, 3-4 weeks heading into the playoffs, which would be huge for this team, considering now that, you probably feel a little bit more confident in Rob Dillingham and, are at least willing to, put him in and just feel like you're a little bit better about the way that you've been playing, especially with Randall too. Like Randall had been playing a lot better. So if he's here after the deadline too, you add, or you kind of layer Dante DiVincenzo back in on top of that as a pretty plug and play guy, I think will be really nice to have. And then Randall, it's just a groin strain. Those soft tissue injuries, you never really know. I don't think they're going to push it. Again, would not surprise me if he's out until the All-Star break, just because they, again, don't want to risk having something that could be a 2-week injury turn into a 6-week injury because they tried to push it too fast, especially in a soft part of their schedule right now. I think they've got enough, even if Randall doesn't play, where you can still rattle off 5 wins in their next 7 games or 8 games here. So, then with Naz with the finger sprain, we just have, it could be, he could play. Naz is a tough customer, so he could play on Monday, but who knows?
Yeah, good point there, and good segue too. Again, Sacramento up next Monday night. A lot of talks about De'Aaron Fox maybe getting traded, possibly to the Spurs. Those are the hot rumors. What's the blueprint to take them down Monday? But also, to your point here, you got 4 more home games in a row, 6 out of your next 7 at home to round out this first half of the year before you hit the All-Star break. So, when you look at this stretch coming up, what's the thing or two you do want to see the most for them to finish strong, I guess, before a week off at this mid-season mark, if you will?
Yeah, I think I just want to see everybody play unselfish basketball, right? That was kind of the core tenet of them playing really well over the last handful of games. The offense has been tremendous. The ball hasn't stuck as much. They've turned it over less. They've generated a lot more clean shots and open looks. So I think the more that you just share the ball and make quick decisions and let everything else play it as it may, I think good things are going to happen. And I think we all trust that this defense is going to play hard, and leave everything out there as they have for the last, 3-4 years. So again, Sacramento is just in a bad way right now. They're the worst defense in the NBA over the last 5 games. They haven't particularly done anything well. They're 20th in offense and 28th in net rating over their last 5 games. They're lost 4 of their last 5 games. It absolutely got pounded tonight by the Thunder. They lost 144-110.
Ooh.
So just absolute disaster there. And they've been getting nothing from their bench of late. They got very little from their bench tonight. They're 29th in the NBA in bench scoring over the last 5 games. And then their defense, like I said, has been awful. They're not really forcing turnovers at a high rate. They're getting destroyed by their opponents on the offensive glass and on second chances. And they've just been hemorrhaging points in the paint. So I think the Wolves want to continue to play downhill. It would be a really good spot for Julius Randle and for Naz Reid. Those guys play, but if Anthony Edwards is able to go, I think he should be able to get into the paint, score at least 10 points, 12 points in the paint in this game, and then be able to work his way to the free throw line as well. So again, the other part too, Jaden McDaniels, I think this is another good matchup for him. He'll have a smaller guy on him, or a guy that's shorter at least, and should be a situation where he can rise over guys in the mid-range and also be able to, get in that handoff game with Gobert. I think, Randall's going to be out, so he's going to consistently at least have more opportunities to play with the ball in his hand. So that's going to be important as well. So I think if they can get another 17 to 20 points from Jaden McDaniels, that'll be key too. And then if they can keep finding Rudy Gobert on the roll and keep activating him the way that they have, it has helped open things up in the half court. So the more that they can do that, the better.
Great stuff, man. As always, could sit here and pick your brain for another hour at least, but we got to roll. Wolves 5-game win streak. It snapped tonight versus the Wizards, 105-103 your final. Wolves dropped to 27-22 on the year. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers, all you guys in the chat that always make us your first listen, all you guys coming in here game to game, venting with us from time to time. Make sure you make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and go follow Jack. He's on X at JRBorman13. He's live from the Target Center during almost every home game. Who gave you the boot tonight, Jack?
NBA TV was NBA. In there tonight,
what a big time guy, though. If NBA TV's giving you the boot, you kind of made it, man. You kind of made it. You're big time.
No, stop it.
He doesn't want to brag about it. Humble guy over here, Jack. At JRBorman13. Again, Sacramento up next Monday night, 7 p.m. tip off. Catch her right here, same time, same place. But until then,